So it's working. Sharing the screen. Actually, entire screen. Sure. Right. Open PPT. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir. It's audible, sir.
Okay. Open PPT. Go to present screen. Present entire screen. Share. Open PPT. Yes. Wait. Leave. Come here. Ma'am, can you able to see my screen, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So good afternoon all. I am Dr. K. Venkateswaran, working as a associate professor in CMRIT, also research convener of CMRIT. So basically in this session, I am going to cover all because they have given fundamental topics. So I have to quickly go through what are the fundamental concepts required for these wireless networking technologies. Okay, so that in the upcoming advanced topics, you can get clear about the advanced research topics. Okay, so in my lecture, the outline of my lecture is, so I am covering here wireless networks. What is how it can be differ from wired networks, and what is the mobility, and also I am covering the RF basics in terms of frequency and modulation, and also medium access control. I am giving overview about Wi-Fi, what are the basic elements in Wi-Fi, and also what are standards and variants in Wi-Fi, and WiMAX, what are the basic elements required in WiMAX. Okay, and also wireless LANs, what are the standards that IEEE 802.11, what are the standards required, and what are the mobility support, and also voice and QoS support. Okay, next I'm covering about mesh and ad hoc networks, in that how routing and transport is happening. Wireless MANs, WiMAX, it is supported by 802.16 standard. In that also I am explaining voice and QoS support. Finally, one real-time example, I am explaining ISDN. After that, I am completing my session. Okay, so these are the total outline of my today's presentation. So in terms of wireless network, we already know that wireless networks, for example, why that wireless networks are required to access the computing and communication services to different areas. Okay, if you consider wireless WANs, there are different cellular networks are there. It is supported by geosynchronous mobile system, global positioning receiver system, or code division multiple access. If you want to access through satellite networks, it is supported by Iridium. Okay, and also if you have wireless LANs, it is supported by IEEE 802.11 standard, and also you can access through wireless LANs through Bluetooth or Zigbee module. And also for wireless, if you take wireless MAN, so it can be supported by 802.16. The most compatible network is the mesh network, can be supported by multi-hop Wi-Fi. Okay. Whenever the infrastructure, that type of MAN area network is not, the infrastructure is not available, you can use the ad hoc networks also. Okay. So what are the limitations of the mobile environment? Whenever we are finding some limited communication bandwidth, we have a lot of frequent disconnections. We are finding some heterogeneity of fragmented networks. Okay, that in that communication path, we are finding some breakages, and also some lack of mobility awareness by system or our applications. If you consider that wireless network does that communication bandwidth, frequency disconnection, and heterogeneity of fragment networks is creating the limitations, is the problem. We are facing a lot of problem. If you consider the mobility, a lot of route breakages are there, and also lack of mobility awareness either by system or applications. Okay, and also if you consider our mobile device, the shortage of our battery lifetime, and also limited capacities are available to access that device. So these are all the limitations whenever we are handling our mobile environment. So if you consider in terms of wireless versus mobile, if you take a stationary computer, it won't support both your wireless and mobile. If you take laptop in a portable laptop, it won't support wireless, but it can support mobile. If you take a wireless LAN in historical buildings, it will take wire. You can access wire, but it will not support mobile. Or if you take any pagers, personal digital assistants, it will support both wireless versus mobile. How to integrate both these systems in the existing fixed wireless networks? In terms of local area networks, you need to install that IEEE 802.11 standards or ETSA HyperLAN you have to install. In terms of wide area networks, you have to access through cellular 3G or IEEE 802.16. In terms of internet, you have to use mobile IP address extension. So in that case, you have to integrate all these things in the single module. So wireless versus wired networks. Okay, what are the regulations of frequencies are available? We have limited availability, so proper coordination is required. Okay, what are the useful frequencies? The maximum useful frequencies that are almost already occupied. We have, in terms of bandwidth and delays, we have low transmission rates. Okay, currently we are dealing that different types of transmission speeds. In that only, if you see optical fiber having the high data rate quality, high in terms of bandwidth also. So other things, if you are finding low transmission rates, that will support only few kilobits up to some megabit per second. And also you are experiencing high delays and higher loss rates. Okay. And also if you need whatever that the communication, long distance transmission, you need always a shared medium. So in terms for that, you are experiencing lower security rate, okay, and a simpler active attacking, radio interface accessible for everyone. Okay, some unknown users can also able to interrupt your the frequencies. Further, secure access mechanisms are also important. Okay. See, there are all the different wireless technology. If you see the landscape, so indoor it will cover maximum 10 to 30 meter. Outdoor it will cover maximum 50 to 200 meter. Indoor, if you see what are the standards they are supporting: Bluetooth 802.11, 11P, 11A. These are IEEE standards. Okay. Then what are the in the x-axis that are supporting rates: 56 kilobit to 72 megabit per second, like that per second. Based on that, we have to support the proper standards. Then outdoor, it will be supporting 50 to 200 meter, and mid-range outdoor means 200 meter to 4 kilometer. Long range outdoor means 5 kilometer to 20 kilometer, and finally long distance communication, it will support up to 50 kilometer. For that, if you take long range outdoor and long distance communications, you can either you need a peak-to-peak communications, microwave or optical fiber communications for transmitting the data. Okay, for outdoor and mid-range outdoor, what are the technologies they are using? WCDMA technologies or CDMA 2000, GSM, IS-95 standards they are using. They are supporting up to outrange to long range outdoor. Okay. So these are the ISO as a reference model that you already know. We are transmitting what are the 7 layers you already know: physical, data link, application, network, transport, session layer. Okay. So we are transmitting through a radio communication. So the through a physical medium, the information get transmitted through a server. Based on that, it will link to the proper destination. Okay. You already know about the what will do that each and every layer. What is the application of each and every layer? If you see the application layer, for finding the service location, and also multimedia applications that will support. If you see the transport layer in ISO model, it will support congestion and flow control and quality of service. It will improve your quality of service. If you see the network layer, it will help us for proper addressing and routing, and also to find the device location, and also it will find that handover strategies. If you see the link network, it will help us for accessing the media, and so it will give some security for that. Okay. So on physical layer, it will help us to find out the transmission errors, and also it will help us to interfere between one media and another media. Okay. So in terms of perspective, if you are a network designer, what is your concern? If you are a network designer, you have to have concern with your cost-effective design. That network designer, they have to ensure that network resources are efficiently utilized and fairly allocated to different users. That is the job of the correct job of the network designers. If you are a network users, what is your concern? If you are concerned with your different application services, need guarantees that each message sent will be delivered without error within a certain amount of time, without any delay. If you are a network provider, what is your concern? If you are concerned with system administration, so you have to concentrate more on security, management, fault tolerance, and the accounting and database management. So these are all the concerns they are having as network providers. Okay. So if you see the R of basics, if you see, what are the factors that are affecting the wireless system design? It can be frequency allocations. So the system, the wireless system engineer will check what range of frequency we have to operate for this type of applications. Whether we have to go for licenses, the licenses are required or not, that we have to check. And also multiple access mechanisms. What are the how do users share the medium? Share our frequency medium without any interference. And also the next parameter that mostly affecting is the antennas and propagation. What distances our frequency range will cover? How we can reduce the errors? And next parameter, the signal encoding. What types of encoding we have to do to improve the data rate of the communication? And finally, the error correction. How to ensure that bandwidth is no wasted? Okay, these are the maximum 5 parameters that are affecting your wireless system designs. So while you're designing your system, you have to carefully finalize your frequency and carefully finalize your multiple access mechanism. And based on that, how to fix the distance. You have to choose the proper encoding algorithm, and also you have to choose your proper error correction algorithm. So these are the things that are most important for your wireless system design. So what are the different frequencies there are available for communication? If you need, there are different types of frequencies out there. Very low frequency, and also medium frequency, high frequency, very high frequency, ultra high frequency, super high frequency, extra high frequency, then UV, ultraviolet. Okay. So if you see the VLF very low frequency, that it will range from 300 megahertz to in between 30 megahertz. Low frequency means in between 30 to something. Okay. So very low frequency, they are using only twisted pair cable for communication. In low frequency, they are using a coaxial cable for communication. So the frequency range is also presented in the table. So if you see medium frequency, then it can be ranged from 300 megahertz, I think. Okay. Then high frequency in between 3 megahertz. So both low frequency up to ultra high, in intermediate ultra high frequency, we are using only coaxial cable. So after that, we are replacing. Up to 300 megahertz, we are placing coaxial cable for transmission. But other than that, after that, we are replacing coaxial cable with the optical transmission, so that it will support higher data transmission rates. Okay. So after 300 megahertz, if you see, now only the optical, we are replacing the optical transmission data rates up to UHF, SHF, EHF, infrared, and up to UV. More than 300 terahertz it was supporting. 1 micrometer range. So for that, you have to use that optical transmission data to support the higher data rates. Okay. And also you already know frequency and wavelength, that lambda is equal to C by F. Okay. C is the wavelength, F is the lambda is the wavelength, C is the speed of light, F is the frequency. Okay. Speed of light you already know 3 into 10 power 8 megabit per second. M/s, frequency is F, wavelength is lambda. Okay. So how you can allocate the wireless frequency? If you consider only the radio frequencies, it will range from 9 kilohertz to 400 gigahertz. Based on the ITU recommendations, the radio frequencies range from 9 kilohertz to 400 gigahertz. If you use the micro frequency range, it will be range from 1 gigahertz to 40 gigahertz. For that, you can able to use directional beam, and also you can use suitable point-to-point transmission. For satellite communication, only this microwave frequency is only the correct way for communication. So if you feel the radio frequency range 30 megahertz to 1 gigahertz, it is suitable only for omnidirectional applications. And also if you take infrared frequency range, it will take 3 into 10 power 11 to 2 into 10 power 14 hertz. This infrared frequency range is useful for local point-to-point multi-point applications with confined areas. Okay. So these are the different frequency allocations that can be used now. And also, if you take VHF and UHF ranges for mobile radio, if you want to install the antenna, small antenna in your car, for that these type of frequency ranges are applicable. So, and also if you take the SHF and higher for directed radio links, it is also having small antenna, but it will provide larger bandwidth than VHF and UHF. And also next, if you take wireless LANs, it uses frequencies up to UHF to SHF spectrum. Okay. But it is having some certain limitations due to some observation of that waves are observed by water and oxygen molecules. Okay. And also weather dependent. It can be weather dependent. The signal strength got weak. And also some signal loss. It will be caused by heavy rainfall. Also, you will face some severe loss in the UHF to SHF spectrum. And also frequency regulations. What are the frequencies that are having high demand now? For example, 9 kilohertz to 300 megahertz are in high demand, but especially if you take very high frequencies, 30 to 300 megahertz are in high demand. And also we are having two unlicensed bands, industrial, science and medicine, up to 2.4 gigahertz, that is the unlicensed band. And also one more unlicensed band is there, that is provided by Unlicensed National Information Infrastructure, UNII. It is providing 5.2 gigahertz band. Okay. So what are the different agencies they are giving license and regulations? So if you consider the US, www.fccc.gov, that is a website for so that agency is giving that license and regulations. And the etsi.org and WPC in India. In India, wpc.dot.gov.in, Director of Telecommunications. And also for most of the recommendations they are providing by ITU, International Telecommunication Union. Okay, www.itu.org. That is the one of the license providing agency. Okay, and also some procedures there. Some different procedures are there for if you consider that military and emergency or air traffic control. Some other procedures are there for using the frequencies. And also for if you consider the regional and national wise, some frequency issues are there. Based on that, we have to use the proper frequency. So if you consider only the wireless transmission, you know wireless transmission consists of transmitters, antennas, and receivers. In some cases, both transmitters and receivers are fitted in the same device. That is combinedly called as transceivers. Okay. So these antennas radiates the electromagnetic energy into air. So here you can see that this is the diagram of the block diagram of this one. Suppose you want to generate a signal that is sent at 900 megahertz. That is the message signal you are sending as 900 megahertz. And the original source generates a signal at 300 megahertz. What is the work of your amplifier? It initially strengthens the initial signal. What is the work of your oscillator? In the block diagram, the oscillator will create a carrier signal to convert your message signal into higher frequency. So your message signal frequency here is 300 megahertz. Your oscillator is generating a high frequency carrier that is also 600 megahertz. So the mixer combines both the source and the carrier. So it will finally get 900 megahertz. So that your filter will set the correct frequency, whatever frequency you are aiming to send. And also finally, in that in the receiver stage, your amplifier strengthens the signal before sending it. So this is the block diagram of these transmitters. So if you take the antenna, you already know the antenna is an electrical conductor or system of conductors to send or receive signals. The transmission means it will simply radiate you the electrical energy into space. Reception means whatever the radiated energy that transmitter transmitted, it will collect the electromagnetic energy from the space. Okay. If you consider two-way communication, the same antenna can be used for transmission and receive. There are mainly two different types of antennas are there. One is the omnidirectional antenna, other one is the directional antenna. If you want to use only for low frequency, you can prefer omnidirectional antenna. If you want to use for higher frequency, you can go for directional antenna. Okay, the antennas will act as an isotropic radiator. For example, it will equally radiate in all directions, all the three directions, only a theoretical reference antenna. If you consider real antennas, it will have direct effects, only vertically and horizontally. Okay. Whatever antenna, you have to compute the radiation pattern, measurement of radiation around the antenna. Based on that also, you have to analyze the performance of the particular, whether it can be omnidirectional or Yakuda antenna or any other antenna, which antenna will be suitable for the particular place. That you have to find using the radiation pattern. Okay. So if you real antennas are not isotropic radiators. Real antennas are not isotropic radiators. They have a dipoles with length λ/4 on car roofs or λ/2. Okay. These real types of antennas are proportional to wavelength. Okay. So there are three diagrams presented in the PPT. One is the side view, XY plane. Another one is the Y. This is a simple dipole side view. It was shown in the side view XY plane. Here YZ plane and the top view XZ plane. If you see, the maximum power in the direction of the main lobe compared to the power of an isotropic radiator having the same average power. Okay, this is a simple dipole operation. And also, if you take the directed and sectorized antenna, you can see this is the difference between simple dipole antenna. You can see the side view, XY plane, YZ plane, and XZ plane. And if you go for a directed antenna, you can see the XY plane. It is often used for microwave connections or base stations for mobile phones. In directed antenna, you can see the side view, XY plane, YZ plane, and XZ plane. And also, you can see the sectorized antenna. First one diagram shows that it was a top view. It consists of only 3 sectors. And the second one, it consists of top view, only having 6 sectors. Okay. Okay. In omni mode receives the signal with the optimum gain. But in directional mode, capable of beam forming in specific directions. Here directional gain is greater than your optimal gain. Okay, that is the main difference between omni mode and directional mode. Okay. So if you consider the received profile in the antenna, if your received proposal is proportional to your transmit power multiplied by transmission gain into receiver gain. Okay, so here you can see the directional gain is higher. Mainly the directional antennas are useful for increasing the range, increasing the transmitter range, and keeping your transmit power as a constant. And also it reduces the transmit power, keeping your range comparable with omni mode. Okay. Whenever you want to increase your the transmission range and keeping your power transmit constant, you have to use this type of directional antennas. So the further, if you see the comparison, what are the issues? If you take only the spatial reuse, omnidirectional is having low, directional antenna having high power. Connectivity is compared to omni and directional antenna having high value. And if you see the interference, omnidirectional having more interference, but directional antenna having less interference. In terms of cost and complexity in installation, omnidirectional having low cost and low complexity, but directional antenna is having high cost, and also in implementation you need high complexity. Okay. And also whenever you are using the antenna theory, if you have to use either equalization or diversity. So diversity means grouping of 2 or more antennas, or whatever antenna you need to install in the particular area, and also based on the receiver. This in the receiver chooses the antenna, which antenna transmits the largest output. That antenna, that only the receiver will choose, or it will come. That another one. One method is that in the diversity, it will combine the output power, all the output power to maximize the antenna gain to produce the gain. Okay, and also to avoid cancellation of any message signal. Okay, so that to achieve the maximum gain and also largest output, you have to implement this diversity concept also. And also the next topic, signal propagation and modeling. What are the basic concepts, signal propagation and modeling? If you see the signals, it is a physical representation of data. Basically, the signal will have any signal having a function of time and location. Either signal may be a continuous or time or discrete time, continuous value or discrete value, or analog signal or digital signal. If you want to convert analog signal to digital signal, you have to do a PCM or A to D converter, sampling, quantizing, and encoding. If you want to convert analog signal to discrete signal, you have to only apply sampling. If you want to convert analog to digital signal, you have to apply this A to D converter process. What are the process involved in A to D converter? Sampling, quantizing, encoding. And also, if you want to convert a time domain signal into frequency domain signal, you have to apply the Fourier transform. Okay. So these are very basic concept. You can see S of t, how the signal is represented. S of t is equal to AT sine 2 pi FTT plus phi of t. Here A is the amplitude, sine is the what type of wave. It is a sine wave or sinusoidal wave or a cosine wave, and 2 pi phi is the phase shift. 2 pi f is the angular frequency. F is the frequency. T is the time period. So these are all the parameters required for mentioning the signal. And also signal propagation ranges. There are different ranges of that: transmission range, reduction range, and interference range. What is the transmission range of the signal? Wherever the communication is possible, wherever the signal having the low after transmission, wherever the signal communication is possible, and also wherever the signal is having low error rate, that is the transmission range of the signal. What is the reduction range? The reduction of the signal is possible, and also up to that no communication is possible. That is the reduction range. That what is the interference range of the signal? Signal may not be detected. Our original signal may not be detected in the particular area, and signal adds some background noise, and also it is modified as other signal. That is the interference range of the signal. So these are the different propagation ranges: transmission range, reduction range, and interference range. Okay, here and also next the attenuation. Attenuation, you already know, the strength of the signal falls off with the distance over the transmission medium. If you take the unguided media, if your received signal must have sufficient strength so that your whatever your circuitry in the receiver can interpret you can be able to recover the original signal. It can be a coherent reduction or uncoherent reduction, and also your signal must maintain a level sufficiently higher than the noise to be received without error. Okay, you can see what are the terms they are affecting your signal in the atmosphere. See. Whenever the transmitter is transmitting a signal in the atmosphere, they are having a lot of interference. How this interference will happen? In terms, for example, if you see the first diagram is showing shadowing. The next one is reflecting. Due to some obstacles, your signal gets reflected, and also due to some obstacles that shadowed and refracted and scattered into different waves, and diffraction. Due to hilly area, you can see your signal gets diffracted. Okay, these are the factors that will influence your received signal strength. Okay, So and also based on some atmospheric effects from rainy weather condition, and also some noises. Other than noises, your signal will be shadowed, reflected, refracted, scattered, and they also diffracted. Okay. So multi-path propagation means your signal can take many different paths between the sender and receiver. In this type of problem, it will have multi-path. Your signal having the multi-path. Signal can take many different paths between sender and receiver due to reflection, scattering, and the diffraction. Okay. So time dispersion. Time means with respect to time, your signal gets dispersed. Okay. And also for this, your signal reaches a receiver directly and phase shifted. Okay, for that you have to use equalization or diversity concept to fine tune the signal at the receiver. And also the next one is the effects of mobility. Channel characteristics, your communication channel characteristics change over time and location. Whenever your signal path can change, and different delay variations of different signal paths, and also different phases of signal paths. Okay, it will called as short-term fading. You can see in the signal diagram, that lower portion it is called as short-term fading, and also the signal effects that are higher than the signal is called as long-term fading. Okay, quick changes in the power received in that message signal, the channel. Your channel having the channel, your signal having experiencing quick changes in the power received, that is called as short-term fading. And also if your signal having changes in the average power, slow changes in the average power, that is called as long-term fading. Okay. So there are 3 different types of propagation models available. You can transmit your signal through a ground wave propagation, sky wave propagation, or line of sight propagation. With ground wave propagation, you can directly transmit through the antenna. Sky wave means you are transmitting through an ionosphere. Line of sight means you are both antenna, transmitting antenna and receiver antenna, both the line of sight communication, so that it will directly communicate the signal from transmitter to receiver. And also, we have different modulation techniques for each type of applications. Any of the modulation technique will be suitable. So you already know, if you want to transmit as a digital data, it can be to reduce the noise. Digital data is transmitted into analog signal. The common modulation techniques we are using ASK, FSK, PSK, and the combination of this BPSK or QPSK, like that. Okay. Why this type of different modulations is appeared based on the applications to reach the spectral efficiency, and also to reach the power efficiency, and also to reach the robustness, we have to use the proper modulation technique. Okay, here for example, satellite, if you take the satellite applications, QPSK is suitable. They are giving proper spectral efficiency, proper power efficiency, and robustness. And also if you take some other applications, you can use that in researchers that have suggested that PSK, that PWM, like there are so many modulation techniques are there. So for each type of applications, separate modulation will be is giving higher output. Okay. So analog modulation, if you see, but if analog modulation is more, you already know analog modulation is more robust of noise. Analog modulation, commonly they are using amplitude, frequency, and phase modulations. Okay. So here for digital modulation, you are transmitting this one like this. Digital modulation, and also analog. For converting digital to analog or analog to digital, you have to use A to D converter. So that A to D converter will perform sampling, quantizing, and encoding in between. Okay. So if you take ASK, it will simply whatever you are transmitting one, that only you are getting signal. 0 means you are not getting signal. It will act as a on-off keying. Frequency shift keying means for one you are getting you are getting increased frequency. At 0 you are getting decreased frequency. Based on the time you are getting increased or decreased frequency for both 1 and 0. Phase shift means for 1 to 0, 0 to 1 transmission happening in your message signal. That time it will have a 180-degree phase shift. If you are saying, you will get 180-degree phase shift. Okay. And also next concept is multiplexing concept. So in that multiplexing concept, how you can multiplex the signal? You can take you can multiplex with respect to space, time, frequency, or code. Okay. If you are multiplexing with respect to space, it is called as space division multiplexing. If you are respecting time, it is called as time division multiplexing, and also frequency, it is called as frequency division multiplexing. Code, it is called as code division multiplexing. For both of that, for all the multiplication techniques, you need a minimum distance. The dot spaces are required. That minimum space between one bit and another bit. Okay. So frequency multiplexing means you have to separate the whole spectrum, whatever the message signal, you have to separate the whole spectrum into smaller frequency bands. Okay, your channel gets a certain band of the spectrum for the whole time. Okay, mostly the analog signal, who are using the analog signal, they are using these three types of frequency modulation techniques. Okay. But what are the disadvantages? If you see the disadvantages, they are using we have waste of bandwidth, and also traffic is distributed unequally. If the frequency is used, means that we can't use that frequency for a particular period of time. And also next, time multiplexing means a channel gets the whole spectrum for a certain amount of time. But in that, what are the advantages? Only one carrier is used at any time. Okay, and also if you disadvantages. Precise synchronization is necessary. Then only you can, the receiver and transmitter will, if you achieve prosperous synchronization, then only we can, you will receive the errorless output. Okay. Time, you can multiply time and frequency combination of both. Okay. For example, the GSM, geosynchronous mobile. So if you are a channel gets a certain frequency band for a certain amount of time. Okay. If you are comparing this, what are the advantages? Better protection against the tapping, and also protection against frequency and higher data rates. Okay, and also nowadays we are concentrating on this type of multiplexing techniques, code multiplexing. Here each channel has a unique code. All channels use the same spectrum at the same time. If you see the advantages compared to FDMA and TDMA, here bandwidth is efficient. No coordination and also no synchronization is necessary. Good protection against interference. Lower, if you see the disadvantages of CDMA, you have a lower user data rates and more complex signal generation. Okay. So this, whenever you are using the spectrum concepts, direct sequence or frequency code spectrum, you need this code division multiplex strategy. Okay. Here you can see CDMA example. D is the data rate for data signal. You are breaking each bit into K chips. Okay. Then what your data rate of a new channel will be K into D. If K is equal to 6 and code is a sequence of ones and minus ones, for example, in a CDMA, for a 1 bit, A sends code as chip pattern C1, C2, C3, that is 6 codes. For all zeros, A sends complement of code, that is minus C1, minus C, that is the complement of that one. So how the receiver will know the sender code and performs the electronic decoding. So in the receiver, it will receive as D1, C1, D2, C2, like that it will receive. So D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, D6 is the received chip pattern. And C1, C2, C3, C4, this is the chip code. Okay, so D1 is the decoder function. So in terms of that, it will the receiver will identify. User A code, you can see user A code to send a 1 bit, this one, to send a 0 bit, like that. If you take user B code to send a 1 bit, okay. If the receiver is receiving the A code, A's code is user A 1 bit, then 6 less than 1. And also user A, like that. If you if the bit number is user B is less than 0, that is an unwanted signal, it can be ignored. Okay, like that your receiver will receive the proper output. Okay. Next, I'm going through the spectrum technology. Here, what is meant by spectrum? Okay, spectrum means it is for example, for secure communication. We have to use this type of spectrum technology. What are the problems of previous transmission? Frequency dependent fading can wipe out narrowband signals for a duration of the interference. To avoid that, what is the solution? You can spread the narrowband signal into broadband signal using a special code. Okay, The main purpose of using the spectrum technology is to protect against the narrowband interference. Okay, you can see here power. This is the interference spectrum signal. So whenever you are using spectrum signal, you can see you are minimizing the interference, and your signal, you are getting the clear signal here. Okay, you are getting the clear signal. So there are two types of spectrum technology. You can use direct sequence or frequency probe. Before that, you can, if you want, you can add directly a PN sequence. In that, you can XR the PN sequence in the signal to minimize the noise. Here you can see figure 5a, effect of PN sequence or transmit spectrum. Here F, PN sequence, this is the transmit spectrum. So finally, received signal is correlated with PN to recover data and reject the interference. Okay. So using the PN sequence, the receiver will decode the original signal with proper data rate. Okay. These are the properties. There are two types of spectrum is available: direct sequence spectrum and frequency force spectrum. If you see the direct sequence spectrum, you can XR the signal with some random based on pseudo random number. Okay, it can be a many chips per bit. Example, you can take 128. Okay, so what are the advantages of using direct sequence? It reduces frequency selective fading. Base stations can use the same frequency range, and also several base stations can detect the record signal. It will help us to get soft handover. Only disadvantage is precise power control is necessary. You have to keep on the precise power to keep the tracker to be transmitted. Okay, here you can see this is the user data. This is the chipping sequence. This is the PN sequence. We are XR with the original data. The resultant signal is like this. TB is the bit period and TC is the chip period. So this is a block diagram of direct sequence spectrum transmit and receive. Here user data, we are chipping sequence using the pseudo code, and you are getting a spectrum signal. Here we are converting a narrowband signal into wideband signal, and we are using the proper modulator and we are transmitting. So in the receiver side, you are same thing. You are whatever modulation you are using, you have to demodulate the signal, and you have to filter the signal, and whatever the chipping sequence we have used in the transmitter, we have to use the same chipping sequence in the receiver, so that you have to decode the proper data. And the next one is frequency hope spectrum. Okay. In this frequency hope spectrum, signal is broadcast over a random series of radio frequencies. Here you can take signal hopes from frequency to frequency at fixed intervals. If you see the advantages, use droppers here only unintelligible blips. And also it helps us to attempt the jam signal on one frequency succeeded only at knocking out a few bits. These are some of the advantages while using the frequency hope spectrum. There are two types of frequency hope spectrum. One is a slow frequency spectrum and a fast frequency spectrum. If you see the user data, in terms of slow frequency, it can be, you have 3 bits and per hope. You can see 3 bits per hope. If you see the fast hoping, you can 3 hopes per bit. That is the difference. Slow, okay, slow frequency and the fast frequency. You are having 3 bits per hope for slow hoping, and fast hoping you are having 3 hopes per bit. Okay. And also, if this is the block diagram for frequency hope spectrum. Here user data. Here in the previously direct sequence spectrum, we have used the PN sequence. Here we have using frequency synthesizer for splitting into different hopes. User data, we are using a modulator, narrowband signal and spectrum signal. Here received signal, and also again whatever frequency synthesizer we have used here, we have to use again. It is a hoping sequence to demodulate the original signal and demodulate the original data. Okay. So in this both the spectrum, whoever the receiver have to identify your proper PN sequence, whatever the transmitter, and also in the receiver side, if you use the FHS frequency hope spectrum, the receiver has to clearly know about the frequency synthesizer, hoping sequence. Then only the receiver can able to detect in both the cases. So the next one is that OFDM. The next one concept is that orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. It is a parallel data transmission on several orthogonal we are using several orthogonal subcarriers with a lower rate. Okay. And if whatever you are transmitting now, here you can see this here. Whatever you are transmitting here, the maximum one subcarrier frequency having the exactly as a frequency. But you can see that all the subcarriers having equal to 0. Okay. So if you are applying orthogonal frequency OFDM technique, your one subcarrier frequency having the exactly having the frequency. All subcarriers having 0. Okay. So what are the properties of OFDM? It is having a lower data rate on each subcarrier. It can give less ISI intersignal interference. Interference on one frequency results in interference on others one subcarrier only. And also no large bandwidth is required, because in previous we required God spaces, but here we don't need any God spaces. Okay. And also this type of orthogonality, here we are using orthogonal concepts. Here this type of orthogonality allows for signal separation on receiver side. And also precise synchronization is necessary between sender and receiver. If you use OFDM, no equalizer concept is required, no diversity concept is required. No expensive filters are used in receivers, and also you can get better spectral efficiency compared to code division multiplexing. Okay, so IEEE 802.11 standards, HyperLAN, ADACL technology, they are using this type of OFDM modulation techniques. Okay, and another thing you already know that Aloha technique, Aloha, slotted Aloha, pure Aloha, like that. Aloha means station transmit whenever they have to data to send. Okay, detect collision or wait for acknowledgement. If no acknowledgement, try again after a random waiting time. Based on acknowledgement only, the channel can be efficiently used. Okay. If more than in wireless transmission, if more than one node transmitted at the same time, the collision happens. If there is a collision, all nodes have to retransmit the packets. Okay. So this is you can see slotted along. You can see first one is the random distributed. No central orbiter is there. Here we are experiencing the collision concept. Here slotted Aloha, we are using the random time slots. That random time slot, here a collision happens. Okay. So time in the slotted Aloha, time is divided into different slots. Okay. The master station generates synchronization pulses for the time slots. Okay. So all the stations has to be wait till the beginning of the slot. Okay. This is the. Then if you see the error control, you can use a single bit, multiple, or burst errors. You have to control. For that, what are the common techniques they are using? They have to use full redundancy, sending every data twice, or simple and common schemes, parity checker, cyclic redundancy checker, or checksum. You have to add some bits in transmitter, and the receiver you have to eliminate the bits, whatever bits you have not required. So this type of error detection scheme they are using. Okay, transmitter means for a given frame. For each frame, an error detecting code is calculated from data bits. Here, check bits are appended to data bits. Okay, and also in the receiver part, we have to separate the incoming frame into data bits and check bits. We have to calculate the check bits from received data bits, and also you have to compare calculated check bits against request check bits. Okay, and if you have detected any errors, you can mismatch that. Okay. If you have to do frame level instead of bit level correction, you have to do frame level error correction also. FEC or ARQ. Okay. Whenever any frame get damaged, loss, or reordering, or duplication, or insertion, you have to use this concept. So forward error correction or ARQ. Okay. In that forward error correction, you have to do you have to add some redundancy for packet level error correction. For that, you have to use any block ports or turbo ports. For if you are using ARQ, you need acknowledgement and retransmission. For example, stop and wait mechanism or sliding window mechanism you have to use for that frame level error correction. Okay. So these are all the turbo codes. Here you can see Hamming distance. Whatever distance, for example, for suppose receiver code, if you are getting this one in between, so here data block is 2, code word is 5. But after suppose you are receiving the code word as this one, okay. So then you assume that only one bit having error, okay. So it will be closest to 0. And if you take the stop and wait ARQ mechanism, means sender has to wait for acknowledgement after transmitting each frame. See frame 0, then he has to wait up to acknowledgement 0. Then again he has to transmit frame 1, then acknowledgement 1, then frame 0, acknowledgement 0. Okay. So this concept is very simple to implement, but a waste of bandwidth. For the efficient version of this technique is sliding window. Okay. And also, if you take bandwidth and delay, what is the bandwidth? It is the amount of data that can be transmitted per unit time. It is mainly expressed in cycles per second or hertz for analog devices. And also, if you want to express bandwidth for digital devices, it can be expressed as bits per second. Okay. And also latency. Latency means the other name of latency is delay. Time it takes to send message from point A to point B. Okay. Latency is equal to propagation time plus transmit plus queue. What are the time the message was in the queue? Okay. Propagation is equal to distance by speed of light, and transmit is equal to size by bandwidth. Okay. Queuing is not relevant to direct links, but it is depending upon the traffic in the traffic intensity of the channel. And also the next TCP per IP you already know. These are some of the interconnection devices. Repeater, it will be help us to amplify your signal. Switch, it will help us to reach the destination address of each packet and forwards appropriate to a specific port. If you take the router, what is the function of router? It decides router for packets based on the destination address and network topology. These are the complete switching network. It contains switches, repeaters, okay, and routers. TCP per IP layer, there are 7 layers are there. Physical layer, it deals with the electrical and procedural interface. Data link layer, it deals with the framing, error detection and correction, and also it provides multiple access. Network layer, it will help us for addressing and routing. Transport layer, it will provide end-to-end connection. Application layer, it will deal with the provisions to user and application developers. Okay. So session layer, it will provide the time management. Okay. So in the TCP for avoiding congestion, they are using slow start mechanism is there. You have to initialize, you have to transmit one segment, then you have to up to RTT, round trip time. You have to wait up to round trip time. Then after that you have to increase your window size, CWND++. Then you are transmitting 2 segments. Then after this one, you are once acknowledgement received, then again you are increasing the CWND. You are transmitting the 4 segments like that. Okay. So next 802.11, it is basically Wi-Fi. You can see the wireless LANs. If you take the wireless LANs, and the advantage of wireless LANs is it is very flexible within the reception area, and also it provides low band. And also, if you take the disadvantages of wireless LANs, it provides low bandwidth compared to the wired networks. Okay, 2 types of networks will support a wireless LANs. Either it can be infrastructure or ad hoc networks. These are the difference between infrastructure and ad hoc network. Infrastructure network, for every infrastructure network, you need a common access point. But ad hoc network, no need of any common access point. And also infrastructure network, wire network with common access point is separate. For ad hoc network, it will be fully wireless. You can transmit through fully wireless transmission. Okay. Also, that advanced multiple access technique is CSMA, carrier sense multiple access. Its algorithm is based on listen before you speak. That means whether first you have to, it will check the medium, it is active or not. If it is active, then only it will send the packet. If the medium is ideal, then transmit. If any collision happen, then the CSMA protocol will detect and resolve the problem. Okay. If medium is busy, the transmission will happen based on the 3 strategies. Based on that, they can use whether one persistent, P persistent, or non-persistent. Okay. And the advanced technique in CSMA is CSMA/CD. Okay. This is some of the slightly advanced version of CSMA/CD. Here they are using based on the binary exponential backoff algorithm. Okay. It will help us to this binary exponential backoff algorithm. It helps us to reduce the chances of 2 waiting stations picking the same random time. Okay. So this and all it's not required. So in the wireless, wherever you have to, this is a hidden terminal problem is there. For example, you consider there are 3 stations are there. A and C cannot hear each other. A sends some information to B. C cannot receive A. C at the same time C wants to send some information to B. But at that time C senses it is a free medium because C cannot hear A. So that time the collision will happen. Okay. So this is the hidden problem. So how we can avoid a solution for hidden terminals is station A first sends a request to send RTS to B, and receiving RTS, B responds clear to send. And also hidden node C overhears CTS and keeps quiet. Okay. So this transfer duration is included in both RTS and CTS. And the exporter node overhears the RTS but not the CTS. Then only the data is transferred to avoid the hidden transmission problem. Okay. Here D transmission is cannot interfere at B. Okay. So if you see the components of IEEE 802.11 architecture, you need this one, a STA, terminal with access mechanisms to the wireless medium. BSS unit. BSS means basic service set. It is a group of stations using the same radio frequency. And also STA, then access point. You need a common access point. You have a station integrated into the wireless LAN and distribution system. You have a portal. The portal will help us to bridge between the 2 wired networks. And also you have a separate distribution system. It is an interconnection of one logical network based on several BSS. Okay, these are the things, infrastructures you are required for transmitting the IEEE 2.11. Okay. Also WiMAX, it is supported by IEEE 802.16 standard. So it is a broadband communication. So here a transmission facility have a bandwidth sufficient to carry both your multiple voice, video or data simultaneously. Here a higher capacity fiber is used, it will be very expensive. Okay. You can see the broadband bandwidth in IEEE 802.16 standard. It will having 10 to 66 GHz. Okay. This is the architecture, broadband architecture. That is the wireless metropolitan area network. So how this is a core network. So every building is having a base station. So that will be linked by a high optical fiber communications. And also for improving the signal strength, we are in between. We are connecting. We are placing the repeater. Okay. So nowadays, most of the wired or wireless communication, this type of concept is very important. Integrated Services Digital Network, ISDN. So this ISDN is very important. Why ISDN is required in wireless transmission You have to combine all the, whenever you are sending the data, before sending the wireless transmission, you have to combine all the data, whether it can be a voice, data, video, or facsimile, anything. You have to combine it to a ISDN line. You can combine all the signals in a single line, and you have to communicate through the telephone network. So this ISDN, so most of the buildings or educational institutions or companies or large organizations or large network providers, they have to constantly use this ISDN concept. So what are the benefits of using that ISDN is that it reduces the cost of network administration, simplifies wiring, combines separate voice and data networking requirements. Okay, so this ISDN is compatible with both BRI, basic rate interface, and PRI, primary rate interface. Plus, it can support existing analog voice and switch 56 services. Okay, this ISDN can carry a voice of user traffic. You can send combined data, digital data, telephonic network services using a circuit switching network. Okay, and also it provides a faster data rate than modems by using a 64 kilobit per second BRL channel. Okay, it can combine multiple B channels to bandwidth of 128 kilobit per second. See, here, before sending the wireless transmission, you have to combine all the signals into a single medium. Here you can see in a large organization, they will use a system, facsimile, and also telephone, everything they are using. So to combine all the, so if you want to, if they are transmitting the information from outside, for that they need a separate wire. To avoid the complexity of communicating every wire for every transmission, you need to combine with the ISDN concept. You have to combine all the signals. Once it is combined in ISDN, then you have to transmit through an optical fiber wire through, you have to transmit through a subscriber interface through a packet switch or circuit switch or private line. Okay. So there are different types of ISDNs are available. BRI means it will support B channels. B channel is for user channel. It will transmit only the voice informations. D channel means it will transmit the signaling information. Whatever that voice, we have to additional signaling. When the user is transmitting, when the user is ending, when the signal is ending. Like that, for signaling information, we have to give with the voice. We have to add additionally with the voice channel. For that, these B and D channels are required. B channel means they will carry only the user information. D channel means signal information. Synchronizing also there are some information. So total data is 2 into 64 plus 1 into 16 plus 16 kilobit per second, that is equal to 160 kilobit per second. Okay. So for to achieve proper synchronization, we have to use the line coding techniques. Line coding means either we have to use most of the line codings are there, non-return to zero, return to zero. For that, we have to use these line coding techniques. For BRI, they are using 2BIQ. The main application of using this line coding is to achieve the proper synchronization between transmitter and receiver. Because if you send continuous number of zeros and continuous number of ones in the transmitted data, the receiver will lose the synchronization purposes. So to achieve the proper synchronization, we have to use this line coding techniques. So this is the ISDN mechanism. Here you can see there are different types of interface: R interface, S/T interface, U interfaces are available. So if in your terminal, for system or telephone, it is a ISDN compatible equipment, then no need of the modem. If it is a non-ISW modem, you have to additionally add TA. TA means terminal adapter, because it is this one. TE2 is not a ISDN supported equipment. TE1 is a ISDN supported equipment. So for converting ISDN to non-ISDN to ISDN supported equipment, you are placing the terminal adapter. So you have this MT2. Then this is the S/T interface. This S/T interface is the optical fiber. You are directly connecting through the switching station. Then it will be directly you are transmitting all the combined signals through, because in your organization, more than 500 subscribers, more than 1,000 subscribers are available. So for giving separate fires for this, all the transmission is not. So for that, you have to transmit through a optical fiber transmission. See, this is the TE1 device. This is the computer. This is the S/T interface. TU interface as required. In between, this is the NT2. It will be. It is the common office located in the organization. Through that, this one. Then after that, you can through ISDN switch you can be able to transfer either a switching network, packet network, or whatever the application. Based on that, you can transfer either a switching network, packet network, or a private line network. Okay. See, this is the organization. This is the ISDN terminal, so directly connected to NE2. This is the non-ISDN terminal. For that, I have used the terminal adapter, so it can be transferred to the NT2. Then, so from building to this one, I am exchange. This is the exchange common ABA. Like you can assume this is a BSNL. This one before BSNL exchange, one exchange is there. Then we are transferring through a local loop using the optical fiber loop. We are combining all the signal and we are transferring the BSNL exchange. Through BSNL exchange, we are transmitting all the signal, whether it can be whether switching, packet switching is required or circuit switching is required. Based on that, we are transmitting the signal. Okay, so the interfaces. So these are the terminal adapter. Terminal adapter is used for converting a device that converts ISDN to non-ISDN, non-ISDN to ISDN. T1 means it is a supported ISDN network. T2 means it is a non-supported network. Okay, NT1, NT2 are the local loop, that is the customer site office, and also that BSNL office, that is the main office. Main customer site exchange office is the NT1, and also main exchange office is the NT2. Okay, so this is the ISDN reference points. Two-wire, if you see the U inter reference, it is mainly a two-wire cable that connects the customer equipment to the telecommunication provider. And if you see the R interface, it will help us to communicate a point between non-ISDN equipment and a TA. If you take the S point, it is a four-wire cable that will connect TA or TA. Okay, and also T point. It is a point. It will connect your NT1 and NT2 terminal equipment. Okay, these are the different types of interfaces that are used in ISDN reference points. Mainly, there are using two types of digital subscriber loops are there: BRI and PRI. BRI means basic rate interface. PRI means primary rate interface. Okay. Each of these type is used suitable for different level of customer needs. Okay. See, if you see BRI, it will have only two user channel, one signaling. Two users can be able to share the 64 kilobit per second, and one user can then one more is for signaling. So this is the basic rate interface. It is designed only to meet the residential and small office customers. For this, only twisted pair cable local loop is enough. See, 64 kilobit per second B1, that is the first user, 64 second user, then some for signaling 16 data bits, then 48 overheads. Totally 192 kilobits per hour required to carry over the transmission to ISDN office. This is the basic rate interface. It will support only the residential and small user customers. So here you can see based on that we are sending to digital pipes, and after that we are transmitting through either packet switching, circuit switching network. So mainly these types of wires are only supported by only high-end optical fibers. Okay. So for connecting this, whether you can use for a 1000 meter means you can use point to point, up to 200 meter point to point or multi-point. Like that you have to use any bus topology or ring topology based on the application. You can use any other one. Okay. So these are the BRI cabling and pin nodes. This one. These are the wire connections. Totally 8 pins are there. Each point is used for 4 U interface, 7 and 8 is used for voltage supply. 1, 2, 3 is no connection. Okay, like that you have to do. The line coding for 1 means for 0 means you are getting -3 voltage. 1 means you are getting +3 voltage. 0 means you are getting -1 voltage. 1 means you are getting +3 voltage. 0 means you are getting like that. Either you are getting -1, -3, +3, or -1, +1. Based on that, it will encode your original signal. Okay. So which is a BRI frame. Okay. 16 bits for B1, 16 bits for B2, 4 bits for D, and 12 bits for overhead. So totally 192 bits. Okay. The next one is a PRI. PRI is designed only for compatible with exchanging. It will T1 card will support. At a time, 23 or 31 users can able to use the same channel. It will provide data rate, will support data rate up to 2.0448 megabit per second. Okay. For that, you have to use either T1 card or E1 card. Okay. So in BRI, 2.04 like that. But here you can see the data rate. It will support up to 1.544 megabit per second. Okay. Same thing this one. So here for sending that, you have to use the PCM TDM multiplication concept, pulse code modulation and TDM multiplication concept. Here you can see 8 kilohertz. You are sampling for income each message signal. You are sampling at 8 kilohertz means 8,000 sampling rate. So you are at a time you are getting 8,000 frames per frame. 192 plus 1 framing bit is required. See, whatever here you are using PCM TDM system. PCM is simply nothing but A to D converter, and also you are adding TDM concept. You are whatever signal you are coming, that is you are sampling as a PCM TDM system. So sampling in 8 kilohertz means you are getting 8,000 samples per second. 8,000 samples means 8,000 frames. For each frame, to 24. If you are using T1 card means it will support up to 24 time slots. 24 into 8, 192 plus 193 frames per second. Okay, here because here T1 card means 23 time slots. See, 0 to 23, so 24 time slots. 24 into 8 because 8 kilohertz sampling rate, 8 bits per second. 24 into 8, 192 plus 190 bits per second, totally 1.544 megabit per second, PRA frames. If you use E1 card means data rate will be more. See, 8 into 24, 192. So plus 1 framing with 190 bits per frame. Okay, like that you have transmitted. Okay, so these are some of the frame. What is a frame format where header and footer is available like that. How you have to give addressing in ISDN? Here country code it will come 3 digits, national code 2 digits, subscriber number 10 digits, totally it will get 15 bit digits, and sub address it will carry 40 digits. Totally if you see the ISDN number, it will carry totally 55 digits of the ISDN if you have ISDN. Okay, and also BRA means how much data it is supporting. If you see, BRA means it will support only for home residential applications. So it will support only 192 kilobit per second. If you use TRA means how much data it will supporting, it will support only 1.544 megabit per second whenever you are using T1 lines. If you are using E1 lines, it will support 2.048 megabit per second. So if you are in need of more capacity, then alternately you have to go to this one, BISDN, broadband ISDN. Okay. So how much data rate it is supporting, you can see. Up to 155.520 megabit per second, it was supporting. See, for uplink, it was supporting 155.520 megabit per second. For downlink, it was supporting as 62.080 megabit per second. This is the maximum data rate that will be supported by ISDN. It will be used for only very large MNC companies or very large organizations, more than 5,000 subscribers are there. They are using more like that. They will use this thing. Okay. So I think here I have covered most of the fundamental things that will be required for designing a wireless system. Okay. So in I hope that in upcoming lectures that will be useful for that. They are mainly they will deliver the advanced topics. Okay, so you can understand that, and you can do your research, or you can do your research for. Thank you for giving this lecture for me. Thank you. Purnada madam, are you there?
Hello, sir.
Are you there, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Sir, participants, if anyone is having any doubt, you can raise up your question to sir. Hello, Jyoti Priya ma'am, do you have any queries? I hope everyone got clarity. I hope everyone got clarity in your details. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. The session was very informative for all the participants, and it helps in developing new insights in the domain of wireless communication. You have given a wonderful explanation and details in the fundamental concepts of wireless communication. You have explained all the concepts with general examples. Surely, our participants have learned valuable things, and after this session, they will be able to explore the concepts in wireless communication in a better way. Thanks a lot for your presence, or even in your busy schedule, you have accepted our invitation and given a wonderful presentation for our participants.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I also thank all the participants for making this session a grand success. Once again, thank you one and all for present here. We have wind up for our second session. Feedback form is shared in the chat box. I request all the participants to fill up the feedback form for your attendance for this particular session. We will once again join back in the third session exactly by 2:15 p.m. I request all the participants to join back by 2:05 itself. We are starting our presentation exactly by 2:15 p.m. So in the afternoon session, we have our resource person, Dr. Shaktivel Murugan sir, with the title of Underwater Communication. Thank you.
No, no, skip that.